Now, oops, sorry, my mouse is a little sensitive. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. Let me see if I need to, do I need to change my settings or is any of the stuff in the way? No. Okay, great.
We're good. Yeah.
All right. So, as I said, here's a 4-part session. We did not session 1 already. Today is session 2. We did our intros already. So what I will say, we don't mind shameless plug. Please put your business name and website if you're up and running in the chat box. I'll be sure to check you out because I do support small local business. So I think it's very important to do it. So please take this opportunity to use this as a networking event. And I jotted down everybody's business type. So I'll try to integrate you into the examples that I've put together for you. So like I said, we're talking about building the customer base. And just like last time, there's going to be a lot of new words and phrases, and they're going to seem a bit jumbled, but not to worry. By the end of it, it'll all make sense for you, and you will figure out what would be most applicable for your business and what you need to do to move forward. Of course, I have to kind of put in a disclaimer. This presentation is for informational purposes because every business is different. And so the exact requirements and tactics that we go over will vary based on your business type and circumstance. Okay. So our core elements tonight that we're going to be talking about is the customer base. And I've laid out some very rudimentary steps because I found that if you make things complicated, it's hard to follow, particularly when you're in the middle of running your business on a day-to-day. So I try to drill things down into concrete steps that people can follow. So we're going to talk about how do you review your data? How do you look at your value proposition? And especially in regards to your customer segment. We're going to talk about customer decision journey and mapping. And then we're going to layer that on top of your marketing sales funnel. And from those steps, you'll develop whatever tactics and metrics you need to move forward. Okay. So, as I usually like to start off by giving you the why. So why do you need to be customer focused? Number one, it's just plain good business, but I identify 4 key reasons that you should keep in mind. First of all, people are at the core of business. People who start businesses, and it's customers who are people. And so at the end of the day, it's people who buy from people. So if you are customer focused, you're more likely to be focused on people and more likely to provide them products and services that they actually need and want. Now, just to reiterate that, customers buy product and service to solve a problem. So at the end of the day, your business is in the problem solving business, no matter what you are. If you're Ford Motor Company to Ms. Sands, who has the hair care products, you're solving a problem for a customer. And paying customers are absolutely what you need to continue to grow your business. So being customer focused is a strategic asset. Business who knows and understands, connects with their customer is more likely to provide better products and services, add greater value than their competition. So at the end of the day, if you're customer focused, you'll always be able to find a way to be different. And therefore, you're going to attract the customers to you instead of you running after the customer. Okay? All right, so let me just do this here because I got to minimize. There we go. All right, so I like to, I have a very simple mind, so I like to figure out how do I simplify, what a business is. So a few years ago, I kind of came up with this definition, and I've been every year since then. I think I started about 2013. I've been revising it so that it makes more and more sense as the business environment changes. So I see business in 4 parts. And so as a result, I say business is an operation. When I say an operation, it means that something that's legally established, entity that's licensed, insured, that has a structure and has systems, processes, and policies in place. So form follows function. So basically everything we went over in the last session in terms of getting organized, that was focused on the operation. Now, if you have the operation set up, that operation should be able to provide valuable products and services and experiences that solves a customer problem. I think so many times as business owners, we are so highly focused on the product or services that we forget the customer experience that the customer experience goes through as they interact with your business. And it's really the totality of the product, service, and experiences that makes you valuable. In exchange, the business collects payments in a timely and efficient manner. So you can see that's why that's going to be part of our discussion when we talk about the money next week. And I cannot reiterate to you how important the timely and efficient part is so critical to business remaining alive and growing and thriving in any environment. I know there's a lot of focus on the pandemic, but in any environment, you need to have efficiency and you need to have levels of fluidity. Right? So let's talk focus a little bit more on this value part of it. Okay? So the value is what the customer can expect. And as a result, the value proposition refers to the benefit the business promises to deliver to customers should they choose to buy the product. So let me repeat that again. It's the promise to deliver. So if you do not have a value proposition, then it makes it very difficult for you to connect to the customer. It's also the belief the customer is also the belief from the customer about how value, the benefit will be delivered, experienced, and acquired. So it's just not the end item that the person is going to receive, but it's how they're going to receive it, how they're going to be able to use it, it's how they're going to dispose of it when they're done using the product. So it's the entire experience that really formulates the value. And generally, creating a value proposition is part of a larger business strategy. But since this is tailored towards those who are already in business, you probably have some framework for that already. And I'm just adding some tools and some tips for you to help you grow and move forward. All right. So if the value is the promise to the customer and the customer has problems, here's how you can look at the problems your products and services are trying to solve. A customer has jobs and they have pains and gains. So the customer's experiences pain and gain as a result of doing their job. So there's a concept around jobs to be done. And so as we all are customers of various businesses, as we move along and doing our work and living our lives, we recognize we have problems and trying to do that work, whatever it may be. And that's the trigger that we say, I wish there was a better way to do this or what have you. And so that ends up being either a pain or we wish there was some way that we wish there was a gain. So the jobs are the things customers are trying to get done in their work and in their lives. And we classify that in 3 different ways. So there's the personal and emotional job. So that's where the customer is seeking to feel a certain way as a result of using your product. There's a social job where a customer wants to look good or gain power or status. It's how customers wants to be perceived by others once they use or have your product or service. And then there's the functional job. So that's just the really rudimentary, the easiest to identify is customers trying to complete a task or solve a specific problem and they wish they had something that would make it easy for them. So with that being said, I have a question for you. Let's open us up to the floor before we go on. And let me put my show the participants again. So for so hair care products and the technology company, what do you think the jobs are for your customers? Either one of you, feel free to answer. Can everybody hear me okay? Y'all got quiet on me?
Yeah.
It's going to be interactive. So for any one of you, based upon your business right now, what do you think your customer jobs are? Have you thought about or even tried to frame your customers in that way?
So with my hair care product, the
Mhm.
customer that I tend to service, they are trying to gain something.
Okay.
So the object is just they trying to grow out their hair.
They're trying to grow out their hair. So what's the job they're trying to get done though? Is they wanna feel a certain way? Or do they want others
They
to
want to
certain
feel
way?
some way. They want to feel some, yes, they do. They
Okay.
want to feel some kind of way.
Right. So your customer, one type, let's say, one job that they might have, they have an emotional job. They want to feel good about themselves. Because for most women, I don't know about you, but my mother told me, your hair is your crowning glory, blah, 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 blah. I was in a hairdresser every week, right? So that's an emotional job. I'm trying to feel good. So we religiously go and get our hair done, right? So if that's the job, what would be the pain to get that job done that you might be solving? What would make it hard for me to feel good about doing my hair?
Repeat that question.
So what would make them feel good? Or what would make it difficult for them to feel good about getting their hair done?
The embarrassment.
Okay, so
of
there's
not having enough hair.
Embarrassment of not having enough hair. What anything else?
So it's
you're
the
on the right track?
embarrassment. It's this. Yeah, it's the whole image. It's the whole stigma. It's so many different elements associated with your hair and your crown and how you're
Right.
viewed upon.
Right. So stigma, embarrassed, maybe feeling a little guilty because I don't know how to do it right. So it's not growing. Okay. So we got a lot of pain in trying to get this job done of doing my hair, right?
It's a lot of pain.
So you got a lot to tap into when you're trying to develop the value proposition. So that's going to drive all your marketing. So you got to be thinking about, how do I illustrate to my customer? I understand their job of doing their hair, and I understand the pain that they're going through to get their hair done. That's how you have to think about it. And you got to tap into that emotion. So customers have jobs, then they have pains, meaning they have obstacles to get their job done. And one obstacle might be, I don't have the right hair product to make my hair grow. So so then I feel embarrassed. There's a stigma, and then it just kind of cascades. The gains, on the other hand, is a little bit different. We're talking about the desired outcomes that they want to have. And the desired outcomes could be required, expected, desired, or unexpected. And it's all on a spectrum. So the required gains is just, it's supposed to happen. If I use the hair care product, my hair is supposed to grow. And the unexpected side, you're going above and beyond anything they could have thought about that will be the result of using your product. So it's a range, and you don't have to do all of it. For every product and service you offer, you don't have to have an extensive list. You just got to know what is most meaningful for your customer, that you can make sure you develop or deliver the promise to address. Okay, so let's go on to talk about that. So the key takeaway, core value proposition is understanding the customers and their jobs. Okay, so with that as the background of how we're looking at this, the key question we're here today is trying to focus on how do we understand the customer base now, with this realization that there's the pain involved, that there's the job involved, and then the value proposition has to address all of that. So I laid out the steps for you. So first thing is, you got to get organized. So that was our theme, our last session. We got to go make sure we are all legitimate to actually provide the products and services that we want to do. That means the having our business and contact information, our registration is straight, our taxes are filed, and the tax reports are done. We made payment arrangements that we owe money. We checked our license, particularly with some products. Licensing is critical because you might need some specialty license to actually be in operation. You got to have your permit done for your occupancy. You have your insurance coverage, particularly for product liability. If you are very product focused, you might want to have product liability coverage. We have our internal policies and we have our financial statements, so we have a way to look back to see where we stand financially. Okay, so we did that. So I made up a company, a fictitious company, to help illustrate all of these principles for the next 30 minutes that we're going to discuss here. So I made up City Soul Catering, threw a little logo together. So this will be our company we're going to use. So for this example, City Soul Catering, it's 3 years old, recently had a change in ownership. So it was a 2-person owner and 1 owner left. They have a kitchen location they actually rent from. So, but they realized after taking last Tuesday session that their area is in a flood zone. And they have realized that they have increased online activity and they might need cyber insurance along with flood insurance. And then they realized with our checklist, they had to update policies for the website and they don't have all their financial statements. So if I was working with that company, this is what they would look like in terms of focusing on the things they need to work on. They need to amend their registration because now that's only 1 owner. And DC government requires that you have to make an amendment if you make substantial substantive changes to your business ownership structure. All the taxes were filed and the tax reports were done, but there are some payments that need to be arranged. So they only made sure to take care of that. The license was valid. They didn't realize they needed a copy of the certificate of occupancy, so they requested that from the commercial kitchen. They're adding the flood and the cybersecurity insurance, and they're just reviewing their internal policies because now with the pandemic, they've had to move to a lot of virtual interaction with clients. So they have to update their website policies, and they're working on their financial statements for up to 3 years because if you want to get a loan, most banks ask for 3 to 5 years of financial statements. And because they learned that their credit reports were available free, they wanted to go ahead and pull those reports so they could get their finances in order, right? So this would look what your checklist would look like, or something similar. For most of you, there might be very few items you need to address, but I just wanted to give you an example of how getting organized becomes so critical because you're going to need this information a little bit later, right? So next would be like, okay, now that I've got myself organized, I need to figure out where is my business in the business life cycle. And so I pulled this image. I think it was one of the best ones that illustrates this. So let's review where we are in the life cycle because each stage of the business life cycle has a different set of challenges, and that includes how you approach and building your customer base. So if you're just starting out, if you're in the introductory stage, your sales might be low, you have high costs, but have very little profits. That's a much different scenario than if you were in the growth stage where you have increasing sales, you have reduced costs because you're maximizing economy of scale, and you're starting to generate some profits. Notice in the growth phase, it doesn't say, you're all the way profit. It says some profits, okay? By the maturity stage, you have consistent sales, you have reduced costs, and you have increasing profits because the more you can reduce your costs, but still having your income increase, you end up with increasing net profit. And then there's the decline stage, reduce sale, constant cost, reducing profits. And if you notice the decline stage, if the business isn't trying to do something about it, it looks a little bit very similar to the introductory stage. So what you need to take away from this is that no matter which stage you're in, there's always opportunity to do better, to reduce costs, increase profits, and increase sales. But if you don't pay attention to this and you become successful and you just coast along, you could find yourself hitting the maturity stage. And it doesn't mean you're an old company. This can happen very soon after launching. You hit a very sharp growth spurt, but you don't do a lot to keep reinventing yourself, reinventing your products, reaching out to new customers. You can easily find yourself in decline because competitors will catch on. Other people will offer better value propositions. So it's very important to keep in mind where you are in your business life cycle, because you want to respond to the changes in the environment and the changes in your business. So for our fictitious City Soul Catering, I put them in the introductory stage because they were 3 years old. But that was not the driving force. The driving force was that they had low sales and they had high costs. And they weren't generating a whole lot of profits yet. Yes, it was the owner might be able to pull a little bit of a salary out, but we're not there yet. So it was just in the early stages. So here's your turn. To all the attendees, and don't go radio silence on me because I will call you out because I can see your names. Where do you think you are in your business life cycle? I'll give you a few minutes just to think about it, and then I'll start calling people.
Dr. Walker, we also had 2 new individuals joining, Robin Clark and Keita Love.
Okay, great. They want to introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm Robin Clark. This is my second, I was on the other call for Tuesday.
Okay.
Yes, so my business is for baking. Yes.
Oh, you're the baker, right?
Yes, I'm the baker.
I remember you. Okay.
Yes.
You're the inspiration for this fictitious catering company, just so you know.
For the,
Because I wanted to do something with food, but I didn't want to just, pick on you too much by just calling it a bakery.
It's funny because I did used to do food, but I stopped.
Well, you still do food.
I know, but I really did cater, but I started out as doing baking, but then me and my cousin, we started doing catering. This was over like 27 years ago.
Okay.
But it got to a point where people don't want to pay you what you're worth, and it's too much, it got to be too much. So I kind of concentrated back on to the baking. Yes.
Right. So we're gonna get back to that
okay.
A little later. It's something I usually hit some people with that, and I tell them why, and it's you can overcome that. I'll say that. And Miss Love, we want to introduce yourself to the group.
Hi, I'm Keita Love, and my Instagram is master.manifester, and I'm a Reiki practitioner, and I also make candles, which I'm doing right now while I listen and engage.
Okay, great. And again, I would encourage you, just like everybody else, please post your website contact information in the chat box. We are promoting small businesses, so it would be great if everybody can check you out. So feel free. Okay, so everybody, you had a chance to think about it.
I have a question for you,
Sure.
Dr. Walker.
Sure, go ahead.
So is it possible a business can be in the between stages of the introduction stage and the growth stage?
Yep.
Each week it can change, it can vary.
No, you gotta need to know where you're at. And it's not about just a week to week. What does your month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year financial picture look like? Now, if you literally haven't been at business long enough to have at least a couple of quarters of financial statements, then that might be harder to judge. Then you're truly in the introductory stage, right? But
right.
If you're still trying to do week to week, then I would just put you in introductory at this point, because you really do need to have data to say, overall, are my sales increasing year after year? Are my costs going down year after year? Even though you will be managing day to day looking at monthly and quarterly reports. Does that make sense to you?
No, it makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
in the introduction stage.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. You could, let me tell you something. Amazon was in the introduction phase for a while. They just started making money. I'll just let you know that. So don't think, you know, this is a judgment or one stage is necessarily better than the other. It's just what it is. So let me be clear. Amazon just became profitable like a year or two ago. Profitable. They made a lot of money. They had a lot of investments into the company, but profits, they were losing money. Amazon.com lost money for years and years. Okay? Because at the end of the day, it's about the net profit. Does that help you? Does that give you clarity?
It most definitely does.
Okay, great. So,
Dr. Walker, Rosemary Notary, they're in the introductory stage.
okay, introductory. So we have another introductory. Anybody else want to add where they are in just by looking at this and having just a few minutes to think about it?
I'm in the introduction stage.
Okay, introductory. All right.
I am definitely introductory.
Okay, all right. So now,
Yeah,
Baldwin,
say
now we know what we're
introductory
dealing with,
too.
right? So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, this is Robin. I would say introductory too.
Okay, okay. So one of your goals over the next year or two is how you specifically in your business type, in your business structure, is how you're trying to figure out how do you get to the growth stage in a way that's manageable. Would I be correct on that? Because most of you sound like you're a one person kind of show. Would that be correct?
On my behalf, that's correct.
Okay, okay. Anybody else want to add?
No, I think we all want to grow our business.
Yes, to what stage? And do you want to do it in a manageable way? Because that's the other key element that we're going to talk about next week. Because if you're a one person show, you don't necessarily want to jump so quickly, but you do want to earn enough that you can take care of yourself personally and feel successful, feel like you're achieving. And so there's a balancing act there, but that's for another discussion. Okay. But okay, so let me just move on to, okay, so if you've done that, remember all that, those records we talked about? Now that you've got yourself together, you have an idea where you are, and you know you're building your customer base because you're in introductory and you're trying to get to a growth phase. So what you need to do is pull all that data, not that when you got organized, that either from your business plan or your company records right now. And so I gave you a very brief list of some information you will need to pull together. So some internal data. So you're going to go to the financials, of course. If you have the profit and loss statement, that would be great because that gives us our cost of goods and see if you're actually making money on the sales that you have. Your sales and customer reports, your inventory reports, because inventory equals money. So we gotta see how fast the inventory is moving. Just gives me an indication of how many customers are coming in and out of your business. And then we talked a bit in the Get Organized session about having a payment and refund policy for customers, just as good business practices. Your returns and refund requests can also be a metrics of how you're doing with your customers. If you're getting more refunds and requests, even though you're able to attract them all through the sales cycle, for some reason they're actually saying, I know I don't want your product anymore. And so somewhere along the way, we may have not lived up to the promise and the value proposition. Okay, so if we pull that data together, if we have marketing data, that would be great. So if you have a customer profile, and if you have a website or social media accounts, you can pull a lot of these kinds of information of your web analytics and your social media accounts very easily. And then if you've done some traditional marketing, such as newspaper advertising, particularly at community-based newspapers. You probably have some metrics that you've been recording or in your business plan. So you get that information together. And next, you're going to have your customer feedback information. So if you are signed up for Yelp for product reviews, if you administered a survey, and these are all practices you should do on a regular basis. If you collect testimonies, if you have employees, I know many of you are just a one-man show, but if you do have employees, your employees are another type of customer. They're the internal customer. Sometimes they have excellent feedback on the value proposition in the products and services. So any of these you have will be great. If you have any external information, that's also helpful. So market demographics, any industry data, any data on your competitors. I don't focus too heavily on the external information for this session because there we have a much larger marketing discussion in the strategy. But it's always good to have some recent demographic information, just so you know if there's somewhat of a population shift in your community that you didn't know about, for instance. And so, Ms. Sands, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I assume most of your products are for women, correct?
No, I don't have a gender on it.
Oh, okay.
For
All right.
everyone.
I knew you were gonna mix it up for me. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So let me ask this. Are most of your products and services geared toward to any particular race or ethnicity?
I don't even do that. All are welcome. It's all inclusive.
Okay.
So
let's
let me
love
let me
all.
let me go back. Let me bring it back.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, bring it in. So I have one product currently, just one.
Okay.
And it's just a hair oil. So
Hair oil. Okay.
it's just a hair oil. It is, on a thicker end. So it is generated to one demographic of people per se.
Just let's just be real. It's for Black
Yeah.
folks. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So demographic data is going to be critical for you because there has been a shift in the dynamics of the racial makeup in the city and in the area. So for your product type, that it might be more critical than maybe some internal information, right? Someone else who has a company, AVI Global. I think as she mentioned,
Yes.
she has the technology for aging in place. You're always going to want to have demographic information handy because you want to see the number of people who are getting to the age range, as well as knowing their family dynamics of who's caring for them. Would that be correct?
Yes. So
Okay.
we do look at the demographics. We look at where the bulk of what counties the bulk of our clients live in.
Right.
Like what percentage of, with the aging in place, what percentage of folks are actually seniors who are looking for the technology, and what percentage are their children looking for technology?
Right.
So we look at those factors as well.
Right.
And then on our e-commerce platform, we're kind of looking at just what people gravitate towards and what they're buying, because that, people can buy from anywhere.
Right. And then you're probably also looking at industry data and looking at what are the trends in the technology world, what are consumers feeling about technology, because it's quite different how they felt about technology before the pandemic than they are now. So every business type is gonna
has changed too from where we were before the pandemic. So the things that people spent on changed as well. So now we're spending on a lot more on different types of things for their home that are more convenience related, whereas before they spent on some things that weren't necessarily, they were more like luxury, so to speak, versus more of a convenience.
Right.
So that has changed as well.
Okay. So you just illustrated a great point about how every business type will have to monitor the demographics in the market, in the industry, on a slightly different timetable. If you're in an industry that's changing a lot, you'll have to monitor far more frequently than another industry. So knowing your business, which is what we highlighted in the last section, is going to be critical. That business type, the next codes that you use to tell DC government about the type of business you operate, that's going to be critical for you to do the research. So first step, building the customer base, we got to have data. You're going to have internal data and external data. The next step is that you're going to review that data with the mindset of the customer jobs to be done and the value proposition. So what you got to do, you got to go back to the business plan or your initial marketing plan and ask yourself, okay, what were the customer segments that you identified that you would be going after? So when I say customer segments, I mean, what are the different groups of people, whether it's if it's a B2C business model, and when I say B2C, we mean business to consumer, so you're direct to consumer, or does your business have a B2B model, meaning you're going after organizations? And there's even a business model if you're going to B2G, so you're going to be the government. Sometimes this is not a big strategic issue for many businesses, particularly if they're in the early phase. But you have to identify which customer segments, or is it all of them to a certain degree? I suspect a technology company might be doing that. Which one of them is your business aiming to reach and serve? And then for each customer segment, this is the key part, you need to identify the key jobs that that customer segment has. There is a tendency to try to hurry up and get it done. We lump all of our customers together and try to figure out the jobs, the pains, and the gains. You really do need to separate them out. So if you are doing the notary business or you're doing the bakery business, you need to figure out, okay, is it going to be single men, African American, DC metropolitan area making $50,000 to $150,000 a year? That's a different segment than say, women, working professional, no children, single, head of household, whatever the case may be. So you got to segment them out and then determine what exactly are their needs. And then you then look at your products and services and you list out the benefits, the value proposition that you have for each products and service. And as you are targeting that segment, customer segment, right? Because that's another error sometimes we make in our haste to get the exercise over with. We say all of the products are for all of the customer segments, and it can't be, because you'll have a different proposition for each customer segment. So you want to list out the benefits. They might have some overlap, and you want to know that, but you don't want to group everybody together at first. You want to separate them out, because that's where you're going to get the ideas of how best to capture them as a customer. And then you're going to have that data with you, because, but say for this company, we're going to have the customer feedback, returns and refunds, and employee feedback. We're going to have all that information laid out, because what we're going to do, we're going to layer that. So for my fictitious company, I said one of their customer segment, they have a B2C model, working mothers, 30 to 50 years old. I said there was a functional job that needed to get done. And this was in light of the pandemic. They had to feed children while working and homeschooling. There was a major issue for many women. And their pain of trying to feed their children while working and homeschooling is that they're feeling overwhelmed. They had limited time and they were stuck inside. So it wasn't like they could just, when the pandemic first hit, you could just run out to the grocery store and do whatever you need to do. Now, these were the pain points and trying to get this functional job done. So the City Soul had these kind of switch gears because they no longer could offer event catering. They decided to do family meals, and the benefits were less effort because you could heat and serve meal kits. It was convenient because you had delivery, and it was quality because it was a restaurant style, cooked daily, not frozen. And notice how I wrote that up. I listed the benefits first and then the product feature. So the benefit is that it takes less effort. The product feature is that it's a heat and serve meal kit, because you want to indicate to the customer how it's going to benefit them. By just saying it's a heat and serve meal kit, they might not gather what you're trying to say. Some might make the immediate jump to say, oh, I could just pop that in the microwave, or I could just pop that in my air fryer, or whatever the case may be. But you want to explicitly say the value of this product is this: it takes less effort to feed your family. Does that make sense to everybody?
Definitely.
Yes.
Okay, there you go. So that was the business information of what we wrote in our old mapping plan. Now we had to look at the data at the same time. And so our data show, we went through our company records, we had 8 to 10 customers per week, but we're supposed to have 25 by this time in the business development. The feedback is we got 4 out of 5 stars. And the major driving force is that there was positive reviews on the taste. The survey we did with the customers a few months ago, we were shocked to find that maybe we had 15% were men, even though we said we were targeting other customer segments. The website had about 250 visitors per month. We only had a Facebook page with about 59 followers, and the profit margin from our income statement was about 4%. Now, since all of you are CEOs right now, so I'm just assuming you're going to be the millionaire, right? So you're the CEO, and you were just given this data about this company. Do you think this business attracted their ideal customer? What does the data reveal to you about any potential customer segments? So I posted 2 questions at the bottom of the screen. So I'll give you a minute to think about it, CEOs, and then let me get your feedback on it just by looking at this information. And feel free to let me know if you want more clarity on the question. Does anybody want to share so far?
I think rather than limiting it to working mothers, it should be just people in general. Because folks working folks in general, sometimes you work late, you might want to just grab something fast, and it'd be nice to have something that tastes good and is healthy that you can kind of grab and go, on your way home from work or whatever the case may be. So I think she's limiting herself a little bit on the segment. She can even do B2B and B2G with it, but if she's sticking in the B2C space, she's limiting by saying just working mothers and in that age range, because you also have people that are older than that are also still working and could grab a family, family style meal and things like that.
That's a good point. Thank you. Anybody else? Miss Sands, Miss Clark, Miss Love. Yeah, I'm calling out names now. Anybody else?
Ms. Vaughn Lee is asking if we only surveyed men.
No, we surveyed all the customers, and that was part of the results. When we asked about gender, 15% were men. Great question. Now. Any other CEO input? So with this slide, it just illustrates that even if you have very limited information, but what you have is solid, you can make very critical decisions about the changes you make to build your customer base, right? So now that we have this in hand, now let's look at the marketing sales process. So we wrote out our customer segments, we wrote out our value proposition, and we listed all of the benefits for each of the products. And so now we have that in the back of our mind. Now we got to look at what is the process that our customer has to go through to purchase and use our product and services. So what I did, I put a simple map, and they call it a customer decision journey or just customer journey mapping. There are many templates out there. There are many different variations on the vocabulary that I use, but they all generally tend to be the same like this, okay? So feel free if you want to use another template, that's fine, but we will have one available for you. So you put yourself in the customer seat here, and there's always some triggering event that says, oh, you know what, I have a problem. There's a problem recognition, and then the person goes out and starts searching for options. We call that the awareness phase. And then they go through a series of exploring different options, selecting between different runs, figuring out which one they think is going to give them the best value. And then you get to the last stage, they make a decision on which one they perceive will provide them the value to meet their particular problem. They make the purchase, and then I like to add in there, I highlighted we collect the payment. Along that journey, the business needs to design what we call touch points, meaning touch points of various moments at which a customer will directly or indirectly come in contact with your business. So it doesn't have to be you that they actually talk to. It could be the website. It could be a newsletter. It could be a Facebook ad. Any of those things need to be planned along the way so they act like a nudge to move somebody along the journey, the customer decision journey. Now, some would make the error of thinking, oh, the journey ends when a person makes a purchase, when they pay for the product and services. But that's actually just the middle point of the whole journey. So there's a pre-purchase segment of the journey, which we just discussed, and then there's a post-purchase segment of the journey. So that's when the person, after they pay for the product, and that could be, I'm even talking about if they have payment arrangements, there's a delivery, use, supplements, maintenance, and disposal of the product. All of that influences how a customer feels about your business. And so it increases the chances, because if you look at the entire map, you recognize that there is greater opportunity that we cannot live up to the promise of the value proposition if we don't pay attention to the entire process. We all know we have ordered something on Amazon or been to a store, picked it out, paid for it, it gets delivered, we actually put it together, and then we look at it and be like, no, this doesn't match, this isn't, and we try to return it. Or we have actually used the product and it was the packaging was the greatest headache. I don't know if you remember trying to cut open certain plastic packages, but it could be annoying. If you add to the pain, the person gets a negative perception of the entire business and product. So you got to think about the entire pre and post purchase experience and design the touch points to help make it easier to ensure that you're fulfilling the promise, okay? And so if I have that in my mind, I now can think about how do I apply that to the larger market to get the groups of customers that I need to come into my business. So the pre and post purchase experience thinks about the individual customer, but by using a marketing and sales funnel that we see here, we're thinking about the numbers of people we need to move through each stage to achieve the profit margin we want, achieve the goals we want, to move from introductory stage to growth phase. So if I layer the customer journey, which is I put here on the left-hand side, with the marketing sales funnel, you see that the person has a triggering event. And so we're thinking, how many people in the district, let's just use the district for example, let's say it's almost 700,000 people live in the district. Out of how many people are going to, the 700,000 are going to have that potential problem, and meaning how many of the potential market opportunity. So it's the unidentified individuals looking for the product and services. So they have the trigger, they start looking. So that's where we have that awareness phase. And then they go into consideration and evaluation, meaning they become a prospect when they identify themselves and connect to at least one communication channel with our business. So this is important, why you will need to have sufficient channels for the prospects to reach you, whether that be the website, whether that be a number of social media accounts, it's the email. Some businesses even work over a text messaging application and other formats. Okay. And then the group of people move from being a prospect to respondent / lead, meaning they're interacting with your business in such a way that you're able to qualify them as being a potential customer. So if you're interacting on a social media platform, it's the comments, it's the sharing of the content, they're engaging with you. It's the emails or messaging notes they might send you, and they might have a question about your products and services. It's actually even the checkout or the cart page on your website, because when they leave that alone, they're actually saying, you know, I'm not ready to buy for whatever reason. And for some of us who are in the service business, it's the proposal and the contracts that we actually send out to people. We've had the initial sales meeting and the sales call. We've done the pitch. Now they have the contract at hand. They're negotiating with us. They may have questions. We're going back and forth. You want that engagement. And then somebody moves into the customer phase where they say, yes, for what I have determined, your product looks like it's going to fit my needs. They execute the contract, start the payment process, whatever the case may be, and then they become a customer. So what you want to do, you want to have the right amount and types of touch points for each of these phases, so that you have a big number of people coming in at the top of the funnel, but at the end, you know people are going to drop away, that you have the right number coming through to the purchase phase. Okay. And then you're going to think about the product delivery, use, supplement, and maintenance, and after use disposal as applicable to your business, because this is where your customer service comes into play. Okay. So you're gonna have a series of touch points. They're gonna look differently than the pre-purchase phase. So you might have the delivery mechanism, the delivery package. I don't know if you've seen some people, they brand their boxes, some people don't. That branding is reinforcing the value proposition, the logo on the bags. That's all part of the process. The way you store the product when it arrives or is given to the person. So that's again about, you know, if you can be in the fast food or fast casual or food industry, you've seen the bags that say thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, that might be the cheapest way to do it, you know, because the cost per bag is probably a couple of cents. Or you can move forward and say, I'm going to do a branded bag. I'm going to put instructions or other support material or just helpful notes that go along with the packaging. All of that is providing a service to the customer. And it goes all the way down to disposal. It's after you get through this whole phase, you build loyalty with your customer, because they are more likely to go back up and rebuy and repurchase again and again. And every time they purchase and they feel that they're getting the value proposition, it reinforced their choice. And so you then build up a very loyal customer base. All right. Any questions on that so far? Because we're gonna just go through a quick example. Ms. Evelyn, how that sound? That sound good to you? Because we're gonna sell this hair oil.
I mean, you head on right there, especially with the loyalty piece, because
Right.
word of mouth goes really far.
Right, but the thing about word of mouth, you want to put the words into the person's mouth. That's the key part.
Explain that.
Because people say that a lot. I want word of mouth. Okay, well, negative reviews is word of mouth too.
That's
and
true.
Then people won't come back. What you want them to say is you want them to be so ingrained and so in tune because they feel so connected to your company that they almost recite what exactly you have on the packaging, right? Because you're probably going to talk about, how well it works, but you probably have another benefit that it smells good, that it's clean and smooth to the touch. They're going to say that exact value proposition use other words, but they're going to tell it to the friends, the family, etc. That's when you know they have bought into what you're really selling, right? And sometimes you learn from your customers what your value proposition is. So I don't want you to think you have to figure out everything. You just need to get on that road and you get feedback back to you about how do you keep getting better at it, because strategy gets more and more organic. It builds on itself, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And you only need one product to start off with. You can work a hair oil for a while. And I'm just saying. Okay, so I had an example here of our catering company. So I left the examples of touch points, and then I put in just using the little bit of data we had of some ideas that that company might think about as a result. So let me just move that. So, because people were using the website more, we might have a landing page dedicated to a particular demographic. So that will drive more people to the website. If we added more social media accounts instead of just Facebook, because that has a particular age demographic. If we wanted to go after a younger group, we might need to use Instagram or Snapchat or even TikTok and make it more fun, but still get across our message about the value. We might want to start writing articles and having a blog so that people have a reason to follow the company. They can get recommendations of food, and it allows them to submit testimonials regarding the taste because they're now engaged with us. And when it comes down to the actual purchasing, here's an idea. There's an abandoned cart reminder on many e-commerce sites. And then there is many options for payment options that make it more flexible for someone to commit to maybe a subscription basis. And Ms. Sarah, you might want to think about that, maybe a subscription basis for that, and when they get the product on a regular basis and it's automatically deducted to their credit card or account. Ms. Clark, if you're the baker, there are subscription models for even the food service in this area of sweets. So it's a lot to think about there, okay? And then if I look on the post-purchase side, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So when you say subscription, so I like that. So what example? I've never seen that though. I've seen it. It's interesting. I've seen them on Amazon. So I guess it will be something similar to that when I've done purchases. Yeah. Where they're like, if you subscribe to this on a monthly basis.
Like you get a cake of the month.
A month club, yeah.
Yeah, or a cookie of the month. And I send you, you send people a dozen cookies, a new flavor every month, but it's $12.99 to be a member or something like that,
Okay.
But don't think that if a notary service, a technology company, there are many types of companies that are using all types of different business models. A subscription model is just one way. For technology, you might say, well, I have a subscription for the maintenance part of the technology applications. We do all the maintenance, we do the security upgrades to make sure everything works. So there's a lot you can think about, but if you're focused on the customer, it allows you to come up with those ideas. Right? So I'm just gonna, for the sake of time, because we're just at the end here. Okay. So the last step, you've written out the value proposition and the benefits, and you identify the customer segments, and you had all your data right at your hand. You had your customer journey map and your sales funnel, and you come up with some ideas, some tactics, some actions that you can carry out to build the customer base. Now it's time to write it down and make the decision. Now, I don't know if you noticed, write it down. It's on here like 3 or 4 times at least. It's the most critical part. You gotta write down, what do you think you're gonna do, when and why and how much, and what's the measurement to show that it's working. So the first thing you're gonna write down, you're gonna confirm if you have the customer segments and the value proposition for each segment. So you're gonna decide, am I going to expand the existing customer groups? Meaning, if I'm the catering company, I'm going to stick with the women because they were 80% of all the customers we surveyed. Or are you going to expand into a new segment? So are you going to think about having a meal kit for the men because you didn't expect them and now it's opened up a new market? Or are you going to take the CEO's advice earlier about just, opening up to everybody and having different types of meal kits that are still easy to heat up and serve, just to think about. And the other question you're going to ask yourself, do I come up with new products? Meaning, do I have a modified version of what I already do so it doesn't cost me much to offer to the new segment or to the existing customer segment? So you write that down, and then you write down the value proposition because you need to refine the messaging. You're going to start with writing out the benefits because you want to craft the benefits in such a way that it connects your company with the customer. So sometimes it's about using the language of your industry. Sometimes it's about using the language of the target group you're going after. So you have to be very mindful of how you craft the message. Okay. Again, you're going to write that down. Next, you identify what is going to be the marketing sales actions that I'm going to take. So remember those ideas that the catering company wrote alongside in the funnel? You need to decide which one of those are you actually going to do. Because guess what? You have a timeline and you need to have a budget. All the ideas might be great, but you may not have the time or the money to do it. So you need to factor in what is going to give you the greatest bang for your buck, or what is going to give you the most long-term success that you can build upon as your finances gets better, as you get more comfortable with it, as you get a traction going. And don't forget, when you're designing those touch points, you want to make sure there's a call to action because you want to nudge people along the journey and the funnel. And when I say call to action, it's simple as something as call us today, email us, or click here now. Those kinds of things are telling people, here's what you need to do next to access the services, okay? And then next, you have to make sure you determine your goals and metrics because you want to be able to measure is what am I doing actually increasing the number of customers? And if I'm increasing the number of customers, is it actually increasing my profit, okay? So all of that is going to be going into your business plan. So you'll update your plan at the same time. So this is what the catering company decided to do. So they could continue with the existing customer base. And then they decided, well, I'm going to try some things for the single men that they picked up from the survey. They stay with the same benefits. But they're going to focus on the convenience and the restaurant quality. And then they looked at the tactics. So they're going to add social media ads that lead people to the landing page. So the landing page is like an introductory web page catering to that particular group of people. So your messaging can be very personalized than just having your general website. And that tends to entice people into other web pages on your website. At the prospect level, we'll say, hey, it doesn't cost to add a Twitter account or Instagram account or YouTube account. And so we're going to start the blog and use that same blog content in all of those platforms so that we increase our followers to 500. And then those who end up following or submitting their emails for a newsletter, they're going to get special discounts or perks. So that gives me a reason to engage with them. And then when they become customers and they're considering that, I have payment options and I'll have an abandoned cart reminder. So just say they're really interested, but they just had to log off. They had to run and do something, that I want them to be able to know that they can come right back. And so the goal with that is to get 10 to 15 new customers per month. If we increase our customer base, as well as decrease our without having increasing costs, because we're working on economies of scale, we should get a slightly better increase in our profit margin. And the more we increase, it should get better. And then we do, at all costs, want to maintain the 4.5 out of 5 star review, because that goes back to speaking to our restaurant quality. So that's what this company came up. And we've done that in about an hour or so. So this is just to highlight how you can lay out some very concrete steps that are not overwhelming to determine how you're going to build your customers. You're going to connect with them and give them reason to engage with you regularly, and then you're going to convert them to customers. Thoughts, feedback, any ideas jump out at you? So this is just a recap here. What are we thinking right now, as we're almost right on time?
This has been really helpful. I think that I was kind of shying away from the whole branding aspect of my business, but just hearing you say that we need to feed them what they need to know so that they can be excited about the brand, I think is something that I needed to hear. So thank you.
You're welcome. And if we do a one-on-one, there's a whole discussion about your brand personality, and you seem like a really artsy person. There's a whole way you can differentiate yourself and make your business really exciting, even to you. So that part of the business side becomes very creative. So there's a lot you can do there. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
And it also gave me some ideas about other things I can do with the different social media platforms. So this definitely was helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. And definitely make sure you gather testimonials. Think about the maintenance side of things with your products and services, because everybody can sell a Wi-Fi webcam, but you probably are bringing a lot of knowledge to the field that people need to know, and you're bringing comfort to the family member. So you get there's a lot you could highlight about that as part of the value proposition.
Yeah, we have a lot of maintenance on the commercial side of the business, on the B2B side. And I'm actually thinking about rolling out a leasing section. So
there we go.
people who want to lease the tech, they're doing, a virtual. So we work on the commercial side. We work a lot with churches, and right now churches are doing a lot of looking at how to get into hybrid services.
Yep.
So what I'm thinking about rolling out, because a lot of them, they're unsure about revenue and getting back to the new normal. So what I'm thinking about rolling out is a leasing platform where they can lease some of the tech for their services and things like that.
Yep. And don't forget schools. Don't forget now you got to think about every place that used to gather en masse.
Yeah, we do a lot of nonprofits, training centers. We do conference room setups, commercial side. And some of those have been coming back. It's kind of up and down right now with COVID, but this week alone, we did a conference room setup where they were looking at getting the 360 camera, so people can be spaced out, and putting more speakers throughout the room so they can hear people talking. So Bard's actually looking at those solutions.
Yeah. But think about the individual, the security in a box. for that sandwich generation that has young children to take care of, but an older adult that doesn't live with them, wouldn't it be nice to have a 360 camera? So I know when someone is taking their medication, when they're, going to the refrigerator. I'm telling you all the things I monitor with my mother because she's in that age range. So if I had an order where it all comes in a box, set it up.
Yeah, we do customized solutions. So we sit down with the families and walk through whether or not they're worried about bed sensors, chair sensors, fall protection, all of the analytics around that. So we do customized solutions with the families.
But think about the family that doesn't want to meet. I want to do it all online. Yeah, just no, without you. I click. Like I add the features and it comes as a kit.
Like a kit order.
Okay. Yeah, like because you've thought it all out, that you present the options in a way that I understand, and I can just click. It comes with the instructions. That's the important thing, and I install, and then you check in or whatever. Just think about it. See, that comfort benefit is
because I feel like it takes away from. So if I have on my e-commerce platform a wellness kit, they can just order this wellness kit. Then it takes away from them giving me a call to put.
It's a different customer.
My solution.
But it's the thing. It's a different customer. So you're adding a new customer segment because the person who wants to talk to you, they're not going to order the kit. So you got that group, and you're going to grow that group. What about what's going to be the new group that you're going to add to it? So you're literally expanding the base without changing all of your products because you're using the same product for each one. Right. So just think about it. And it's sometimes it's about timing and whether you do it, and you might be really focused on expanding what you have, which is great too. But just think about it.
Okay, I will.
I got to introduce you to ARP as well.
Yeah, I agree, Dr. Walker, because a customer like myself, I probably won't be looking at your stuff until midnight. Before
right.
That's when I start looking at and shopping for stuff for home. So at that point, you probably won't be in the office to answer the call.
Right.
So that's a good option.
Yeah, expand the mind.
Vaughn Lee had also shared that she can see how being a notary can provide a subscription service, also can provide subscription services.
Yeah, particularly depending on the type of document. If you have something that needs to be signed regularly, yes. Or groups of documents that, if they got folks who do a lot of real estate transaction or lawyers or stuff like that. So there's a lot of possibilities with all of your businesses. Every one of you has a business idea that can be taken to the next level. Every one of you. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah. I really like the idea of the subscriptions because for me, being a baker, one of the things that I happen to see on Instagram with some of the fellow bakers that I follow, like I had took last year cheesecake classes from this one person who was giving them, and the next thing you know, everybody was doing cheesecakes. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Right. And it was just like and it was all along. I mean, you saw so many. One of the ones she taught is strawberry crunch. So for me, I kind of start thinking out the box and start doing other things. And I just revealed a new one that no one has. And see, because I went to school for pastry class for 12 weeks. Okay. I was able to incorporate things that I know.
Right.
That I look at some of the bakers, but I really like the idea of the subscriptions because something like that. So now you really got me thinking, and I'm like, that would be great because I don't want to do what I see everybody else doing.
Exactly.
And it's so competitive that you do see on Instagram, but I'm not that type of a baker. I want my stuff to be totally different.
Well, you definitely have to tune in next week because we're going to talk about strategy and talk about the larger, how do you position your company.
All of them. Yeah. So,
and just let me remind you guys, there is no box. Let's drop that phrase, think outside the box. There is no box. There's legal and illegal and ethical and unethical. That's it. Those are your lines. That's it. Okay. but our society, our schooling, our culture wants to confine us. Like, you can only do this if you went to school for this. So let's get rid of the box.
Okay.
So you're thinking about who needs a security camera? Who needs a cape? Who
Yes.
needs a notary? Like, we're starting that big.
Yes.
And then you figure out, what will I bring to the table that will attract people to me? Because people buy from people. So your story becomes important. You hear Shark Tank all the time. Tell us about you. Don't you hear them? Like Lisa Lanier and Mr. Wonderful. They be like, well, so tell us, how did you do this? Because it's the story. Business is about people. And once we buy into that person, we keep buying no matter what. There's certain brands we won't let go no matter what. They got to be so egregious in what they do for us to be like, I'm not going there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Yes.
so unlock any of the recognize your barriers to your thought, but write down all your ideas. You can't do all of them all the time. Sometimes you have to be very practical. Budget and time are the two parameters you have to manage on a regular basis, but there is no box. Okay. Anybody else got a thought? I love y'all's conversation and input. And Baldwin, I know I'm right on time, so I'd just like to thank the supporters, DS, LBD, and DHCD, and join us for next week when we talk about strategy and the money. All right, and that's just my contact information. So if you ever need to reach out, but we'll be reaching out to you for any to schedule one-on-ones.
So where can we find, you will send the slides to us afterwards?
Yes, Baldwin, you want to tell them the next steps?
So yes, the slides and the video will be available tomorrow. We'll be sending those out by noon. You'll definitely have access to the video. The session was recorded, so you'll be able to go back through and listen and, pick up or even share it with friends or family members that probably would have wanted to be here but did not have the time. So yes, definitely we'll have that to you all by noon tomorrow.
Great. Okay.
So it's been a pleasure meeting you guys, and I hope to see you next week.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Thank you.